You know what? It sucks to be poor. But we know that, right? You know, right, it sucks to be poor, duh, right? But the thing is, unless you are poor, unless you've actually been there, sure, you get it to a point, but most people don't really grasp what it means to be poor. And that's one of the biggest problems the poor face in this country. Not only that they're poor, but that the people around them who could help them potentially don't even really get it. We have a situation in this country where an entire class of people, the poor, are kept down, and furthermore are given few opportunities to escape at all. Not only are they kept down, but they are, in a sense, forgotten. When we look at America and the world, a lot of people will envision the middle class image. You know, the nice house with a couple acres of land or whatever, or living in the city with a little bit of land but a nice house and all of that. And then you think of, like, the ghetto, and it's sort of the ghetto, right? It's not a place that has meaning per se, it's just the ghetto, that place filled with the bad things. And you avoid it. But there are people that live there. That is a place that has unfortunate people in desperate circumstances very often. We have people, once you are poor, that have to make awful choices. Food or medicine. Do you pay the electricity bill or do you pay the gas this month? Do you buy food enough to feed the kids and skimp yourself? Do you not take your meds because you need to space them out more? These are unthinkable choices to most people. These are necessities, right? But they are necessities. There's just no guarantee once you're poor that you get them. And so life becomes a juggle. Life becomes a stretch, a constant struggle. You're ground down. And one of the unfortunate truths of being poor is your life expectancy is lowered by a decade or more in some cases, especially if you're a minority and poor living in the ghetto. The rates of crime are different. The rates of disease are different. Drug use, all of it. Economic status is all different. And the poor are sort of literally ghettoified. The ghettos of Nazi Germany were where the Jews and other undesirables were forced to live, pushed into the dirtiest, worst parts of the city to keep them away from the civilized view. And in essence, that's what our ghettos are now. A place where we keep the poor with devalued, low-cost living so that they're out of sight from the regular people. They're across the tracks. They're over there. And as long as you don't go down these roads, you don't even have to really see it. The poor are kept out of sight and forgotten. Now, of course, there are people who want to help them. There are social programs. It's not like this is some place where people are just starving out on the streets everywhere and the poor are in, Mad Max times. But it could be so much better, too. We have people, who don't have access to health care, dental care. People, oh, well, it's dental care. Have you ever broken a tooth? Have you ever dealt with that kind of pain? And then try to tell me that, oh, you don't really need dental care. It's like, no. There are things that everybody should expect in this society, I feel like saying. It's not socialism to say that we should look out for each other to a point, is it? Is it socialism to say that a man starving to death on the streets, it's not the worst thing to do to help him out? That's not socialism, that's compassion. That's basic human compassion at that point. Sharing what you have with someone less fortunate is not evil, it is good. And I think one of the problems we face in America when dealing with our own poor is this sort of anti-communistic, self-deterministic drive that we have that's enshrined in our culture as being so powerful and important. You climb up the ladder with your own effort and sweat. You make it up there because you did it. Wealth stratification has taken most of the money and power to the top. When you combine this with the fact that not only are most people ignorant of the situation of the poor, but the rich don't wish to share, the poor don't have enough to share with each other, and the middle class are driven by fear, thinking that if they lose a little bit, they too will become poor. So nobody ends up helping the poor, really. Taxes go to them in the form of food stamps and other things. However, donations, real food, projects to get them not homeless anymore into houses and jobs, underfunded everywhere. The programs that would end the problem are not so well funded because that's hard, it takes effort. It requires us to re-examine and re-evaluate the values and core structure of our society where this happened at all, where people could live in such squalor and have no way out. Because that's the other little key piece that fits into all this is most people born poor will stay poor and die poor. Their family will be poor. It goes on. When you lack the money for a better education, the next member of your family has to deal with your income too. They lack the money for a better education, on and on and on. When ignorance is propagated because the poor have worse access to education and resources, ignorance then becomes propagated down the generational lines. Biases and ignorance are passed on as truth, keeping the poor themselves locked in their own cycle, reinforced by all of us. And this isn't to say that everybody should go out right now and hand your money to the next poor person you see. That won't help. This requires a ground-up sociological understanding and then a change. But before we can even talk about actually what we do to fix it, right, we have to really, truly understand why the poor are the way they are, why we are the way we are about them, and why all of the social interactions along the socioeconomic strata work as they do. What can we do to prevent this from occurring again? How do we make society better? These are the sorts of questions that really should be asked before we just start saying we can fix it all. But of course, and will be covered in another video coming up, is the other side of all of this. As I have said, the poor are kept down by outside factors. But there's another part that keeps it down to the cycle inside of the poor community. And we'll talk about that next. And so, we have a situation